My guest today is Buddy Hale. You may know Buddy Hale from a lot of different cars he's built. He's been on the scene for quite a while. He's out of Arizona, owns a company called Type 1 Restorations. And so we'd like to welcome our guest, Buddy Hale, on. Buddy, how are you?
Good. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
I'm good. Hey, so I wanted to kind of, with our format of our show here, the first thing we kind of talk about is like, one of the first questions I usually have is, how did you get into VWs?
Oh man, from elementary school, I remember from an early age, probably fourth grade, there was a car being built across the street from where I went to school, and I never saw one before, and I just remember seeing that car and fell in love with it. It's kind of funny story because I kind of befriended the kid and just so I could like hang out with him and learn about the car. So
right.
that was my earliest memory of the Volkswagen. It was a '66 Cal Look Bug.
Oh, that's awesome. And then this was in Arizona.
Oh yeah, in Arizona.
And so, what was the first time that you actually acquired a Volkswagen?
17. I was 17, and I purchased a '68 Bug, and I worked for about 3 years to save for that. $1,900. Nice. And then, how long did you have that '68 Bug? Oh, dude, you know the story on that. It's that was my purple car with the white rubber. So
if some people want to actually see what this Bug looked like. This Bug was actually who was it on the cover for? Rocky Mountain Motor Works?
Yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah.
Well, but there's nothing unfortunate about that. I mean, I think
right. I was excited at the time, and then to come back on, have all you guys tease me about it all the time. It's pretty funny.
Well, I think that I think really kind of the dream for a lot of people when they start looking at magazines, things like that, is to get their car in a magazine, and once you finally get, I mean, everybody flips out over a little 2x2 inch picture of their car in a magazine. But if you get your car in a magazine, and especially if it's like the background shot for someone's business, I mean, it's pretty cool. So we'll flash a picture of that. Everybody can take a look at that, but nothing to be ashamed of. It's your first step to stardom. So speaking of that,
right.
So you own obviously a successful shop building high level restorations, Type 1 restorations. So I wanted to kind of ask you, how did you get into doing Volkswagen restorations, paint and body work? How did you get down that path?
I always had a love for the Volkswagen Beetle, especially Type 1s. I don't know why, it's just my favorite car. Even though, I work on them all, but Type 1s, I particularly am very fond of those. But how I got started was, I was, from very early on, I have very, very limited education. So I knew from an early age that I had to do something physical, work with my hands. And I had a job doing construction, which I was really successful at, but I just hated it. Yeah. And at the time, I lived across the street from a neighbor of mine who had about 20 of them in his backyard. And I would always complain to him how much I hated my job. And he's like, dude, why don't you do something about it? And, I was in a club at the time. It was called German Addiction.
Yeah.
And, he's like, we don't have a painter. And so that's where it started. I just started painting the club cars for free, and it kind of landslided into, more and more customers, people wanting their cars painted. And so that's basically how the ball started rolling.
And so to take me back to when you were doing construction, what type of construction work were you doing at the time when you were doing construction work?
I was drywall finishing.
Okay. So, because that leads into my next question. So when you're doing drywall finishing, it's in most cases, it's pretty tedious work. And it kind of, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because the level of paint and detail that you guys do to the cars down there, I mean, it's super labor intensive. And so it's like,
yes,
most body shops, it doesn't seem like they put that kind of commitment and time into that. I mean, speak to me a little bit about that. Like at what point did you start? Was the purple car that detailed?
No. I mean, the funny story about the purple car is when I got that car done, I paid the guy $3,500, and in the stipulation was that I did all the body work. Go figure, I paid him.
Right.
And But
That's a
I
good deal.
basically,
Are you getting any deals like that right now?
yeah, right. So yeah, so I would get off of work about 4 o'clock, and then I would go to his shop about 10 o'clock at night, and he would teach me how to do body work on that car.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so no, it wasn't detailed like we do now. It's obvious, it's the more you do, the better you get at it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was thinking about the other day is the, in the level of detail. I think we both came into the scene around the same time in the late 80s and then early 90s.
Yeah.
And you had those cars that, the 90s restorations are completely different than the restorations of the past, 10, 15 years. And a lot of that's really changed, especially one of the big kickers is level of detail. At what point did you, what was the first thing that struck you that had such a high level of detail that you want to start building cars like that?
For me, it was seeing Aaron Broughton's car,
Yeah.
because I was doing them and I had a vision in my head, and I just didn't have a direction. And when I saw that car for the first time, I was like, "Holy shit! This is how they need to be. This is how they need to be done." And from that moment on, I just knew that I had to get better than that car, and that was my driving force. That's what started it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how you say that. That's what inspired you to push to the next level, because
Right.
I know that it's interesting when you see something that kind of raises the bar, it kind of pushes you to raise the bar even higher, or it ignites something in you. Like for me, for example, it was seeing Randy Gates' car. When I saw Randy Gates' split window, my bus was nice and it was built in my garage and my buddy painted it and all that kind of stuff. And it was different enough looking that it was good looking. But when I saw Randy's split, I thought, okay, Bill, it's time to be real with yourself. You cannot build a car like that because you don't have the skill, the patience, or the time. And I thought, well, I got to find out the dude who painted that car. And then, which I knew was you at the time. I thought I got to have that. So the point I'm making is that it's what seeing Randy's car inspired me to want to build something, to have something that nice,
Right.
So it's interesting how, and I was talking about this on another podcast earlier about how one of the things that kicked it off for me was seeing Randy's car, and then seeing Randy's car made me have a desire to go ahead and get my car going to that level. And then I knew what car I wanted. I saw Randy's car and I thought, hey, it would be more rare than a split would be a Type 34, and then starts the saga of the Type 34. So
Right.
Seeing Aaron's car is what kind of kicked you into that detail level. And now it seems to be that it's that the evolution of the hobby. So that was what, back 2005, 2006?
That's 15 years ago.
Yeah. So that's
crazy.
That was that. So it's 03, 04 when Randy's car came out.
Yeah, I think it was 04, 05. Yeah.
And so when you get that, and then you start to see like Randy's car in comparison to cars that are built today, it's funny. You don't think there could be more detail put in the cars, but there's even more detail put in the cars. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And obviously you've been one of the driving forces. So how are you able, building what you're building, are you able to continue raising the bar in respect to like level of detail and kind of doing something new, yet the platform is still kind of the same with the Beetle?
I think it's just mainly pulling ideas from customers and myself, and and not only that, going to like shows like SEMA and seeing these cars, like the Rad Rods by like just the innovation and stuff that those, and I'm trying to like take those ideas with my own ideas and kind of attempt to make like a street rod, out of them, a street rod type cow look,
Right. Try to mix genres a little bit. So mix.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned did you say Rad Rods by Troy?
By Troy, yeah.
Yeah, so he
Troy Trepania.
He sets a benchmark. I mean, that guy's got a pretty crazy level of detail in his cars.
It's insane. It's insane, and I like his use of colors. So and the Volkswagen colors are just they're beautiful to begin with. So you can just the sky's the limit with them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I just, after I get off of work, I just stay awake at night in bed and just kind of like go over it. I can visualize things before, when they're visual itself helps a lot too, I'm not afraid of some diet and put off down and redo it again if it doesn't compute from my head and onto our.
It's really what helps the scene grow and progress is like the constant evolution of things where, back in the 90s, like the biggest deal was to get a roof rack. You know what I mean? Or whatever the case was. You had, in the early 90s, you had the accessory rage and stuff like that, So I know that for me, it's kind of one of those things where, I get excited to go to the Classic, to see new stuff that's coming out, to see new builds. In respect to new builds and coming out with cars like that, what is your feeling like the week coming up to the Classic? Like you're getting ready to debut a big car. What kind of feeling do you experience like as you're getting ready to debut a car?
Oh man, it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense because the hours going into it, that's where mainly all the hours come in. I mean, there's a ton of hours going to it, but we're 3-4 weeks out. I mean, we're thrashing, and everything else basically gets shut off. I mean, if something goes wrong at home, well, I'll deal with it in 4 weeks, that type of mentality. So, I just kind of go into kind of a panic mode, so to speak, and, I'll stay at work for 24 hours until everything's done just to make sure it shows up on time and it shows up right.
Yeah.
So it's not pleasant.
How much involvement do you have or do the owners have in regards to, like when do most of your people bring you a car and say, here, buddy, do what you do with it, blank slate, you make it the car you would want? Or do they come to you with a lot of ideas? Or, I mean, what's that like now?
Well, it's usually, it's both, I have some customers that, like yourself, you know exactly what you want, and then, you don't waver from that. And then I have customers that say, yeah, go for it. Just do what you want to do and just print me back a bitchin' car. And here's like the color scheme that I kind of want to go with. And then I start rolling from there. But 9 times out of 10, I usually just end up doing what I want to do anyways. And, and it's everyone's happy in the end.
Unless you get a difficult client that's just rigid, just like he's not moving from the line.
Oh yeah, I usually know. I know those, and I won't waver. So I know what I can get away with and what I can.
Have you ever had a client that came in and said, "Look, I want X, Y, and Z," and you're like, "I'm not your shop. Like for what you want, I'm not the guy that you want," because either. Is there a limit to like what you'll build for someone, or do you like what you're just like, what you want? I don't kind of want my name or my brand on, and not that you're not. And I don't want to say like you're being a brand snob, but what you want to build. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have some, some probably about 3 customers in the last couple of years. And I didn't want to go the direction they were going. with the airbag setup and the big wheels, and I just
not your style.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to cheat the person either, because, so when something like that is going on, I couldn't give my full effort into it, because I have to be into what I'm doing.
So you got to have your heart in, like you also yourself, you have to want to see this car get done.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And so now, what are your favorite cars to build? Are they mostly bugs, type 1s?
Yeah, the bugs are cool. I mean, when they're all done, I love them all, of course. But the Gias are pretty difficult. The buses are pretty difficult. They're really labor intensive as far as paint and body goes. And so once you get through that phase, then I really enjoy it. All of them.
Yeah.
The Type 3s, and even the Porsches we're getting into too. Those are pretty fun to deal with too.
Yeah, I saw that you did a 356 recently. You've done a few 356s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those people they're a whole nother level of people though. They're just, man.
So in regards to dealing with Porsche people versus VW people, is there a difference?
Oh yeah.
And what would you say is the biggest difference? Like on Porsche people, are they super rigid? They want exactly what it needs to be, or
they want exactly how it was. They don't waver from anything, and it has to be correct.
Yeah, and so they, I
So
mean, and what level do they go to make sure that it's exactly correct? Like, what's the craziest thing you've seen when your customers come in with, shoelaces that were on Ferdinand Porsche's shoes, or, I mean, like, you know what I mean, like trying to get something exact. Have you ever seen anything just really blows your mind?
oh yeah, no, I mean it's the same. I mean, because we've restored all original Volkswagens. They're pretty picky too when the early 23s and the early splits, so you have to be correct on those too. So we kind of going into it that we already know what we're dealing with. So
Yeah,
we got a pretty good idea of what just the research and stuff that goes into it. It has to be pinpoint.
right. So, what? So money's no object. You guys got an unlimited budget. What car would you not build no matter what? No matter what? What car would you turn away?
Type 34.
You did two of them. You did two stunning Type 34s, and you're throwing in the towel on the 34s, huh?
Oh my God, yeah. I have a sunroof one for a customer, and I won't even build it.
You keep walking on the other side of the garage.
Yeah, it's like I keep avoiding it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they're a difficult car. There's a lot more
They are.
parts and pieces, and Volkswagen. That car was the evolution of, like, they were getting a little bit in the sports car market, wanted to compete with the sports cars, and that car comparably in the US at the same time was the same price as a 356. So
yeah,
I mean, that was the reason why they didn't bring them here, because Volkswagen here was known for economy cars, and so it didn't make sense. But maybe that probably could play a large part, because if you look at the 356 and they're all unibody, the fenders, quarter panels, roof lines, all one piece, and they just threw some extra curves in the Type 34 to make it absolutely impossible to block out and sand and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's just a lot labor intensive, and then also too, the parts are just impossible to find.
Yeah.
If you're short on parts. But I will say this though, driving those cars, hands down, best car Volkswagen ever made to drive, I think.
Yeah,
the bitchin'.
I really enjoyed driving mine compared to like a Type 1. It's just because it's wider, the suspension. It's just pretty nice. But so what you've got new stuff coming up for the Classic this year?
Yep.
Or do you keep most of that stuff kind of under wraps? You don't want to really start letting people know what you got coming up and try to keep it?
Yeah, we try, but with the modern day, social media, you just got to stay on top of it. So we kind of let a couple things leak out, but we got some pretty interesting projects coming up. We got 2 split windows, actually 3, one stock, one pretty, Cal custom, pretty cool, Resto custom, and then yours is up on deck, and that's going to blow people's mind, I think.
Yeah.
And it got got a low light Gia coming down the pipeline pretty soon too. And the guy is like, he's letting me do whatever I want to that, so it'll be pretty interesting when that's done too.
So blank canvas. So now, have you worked on other stuff besides VWs and stuff like that? And how's that experience been? And do you just come back to VWs because you're comfortable with it, you like it, or it's because you're in the scene, or what's it like? Because I don't see a lot of Chevys around your place. I think at one time I saw a Camaro down there. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, we'll do a couple hot rods here and then, but it's just you have to gear up.
Yeah.
A completely different avenue to do cars like that. I mean, the guy we're doing the Gia for, we're doing a Falcon for him, a 64 4-door Falcon.
Right.
It's pretty odd car to do, but it's his car. It's he when he was 16, high school car, he has to have it, and we're putting the same detail that we do in all the Volkswagens. So,
right.
We do stuff here and there. We just don't advertise that stuff. So.
But you have more passion about doing the VW stuff?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I can't. It's the Falcon that I'm working on. It's because of the person's passion's there. It's not because of the car. But when I'm doing the car, it's the passion for the car.
So
Volkswagens.
So can a customer's passion for a car motivate you as well? Like if somebody's really fired up about it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So sometimes. Now, in some cases you may get somebody that just wants to build a car so they can have a car. They're not really in it. They've got the money to do it. They've got, but they're just like, oh, I just want to build a car. I just want to have one because my friend's got one. Have you ever had situations like that?
Yeah.
And is it difficult to get motivated behind those kind of projects?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not the same. It's not the same.
What is the ultimate VW that you'd like to build? Like if you could build a VW, and it's open canvas, whatever you want. What do you build? And this is going to be Buddy Hale's car.
67 Bug.
A 67 Bug.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Traditional cow look or Resto custom or what?
Oh, I would probably do it a traditional cow look, just old school traditional cow look. That's what I'd probably do it.
Yeah, because you did Dean's car, right? So you built Dean's orange car, which had a bunch of custom cool little tricks to it.
Yeah.
And then you've done some other 67s as well.
Yeah, Steve Niedorf's that black, the rolling blackout.
Rolling
blackout. That car's crazy.
That car's
the car like that I really like is like that. Yeah, I don't know the guy's name, but the Fabian, and DKP, like a Burgundy. Yeah, that car is just, to me, that's the ultimate. It's just super clean and subtle.
Just a nice cruiser.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anything new? So what's new at the shop? What are you guys getting into? Are you guys evolving, getting kind of into different things? You said you're doing some Porsche 356s, but other than that, are you taking on more stuff in-house? Or are you starting to focus on more of your specific detailing stuff? Like what kind of stuff are you guys doing that's a little bit different than you were doing a couple years ago?
We're trying to start, gearing up for in-house tooling, to, bead rollers and, lathes and, we're even looking at a CNC machine to, just kind of
machine parts.
Yeah, machine parts and eliminate time because it's so time consuming fabricating these one-off parts, so if we can eliminate them in-house and save a lot of time there, that's what we're kind of going after.
So if I ask you the question and the choice is yours, stock or custom, what do you go?
Custom.
So, and then I'm going to ask you hard top or rag top.
Hard top.
Which I knew the answer to that, but we can just agree to disagree on that.
Yeah,
but, oh yeah. And so why is it that you like a hard top better than a rag top?
I just the lines. It just looks so sleek. And,
just an uninterrupted line of the roof line of the Bug and just that whole look. And then let me ask you this, going back to your time coming up in the VW scene, what was a car for you that when you were coming up, like you were like, oh, that's my car, man. Like that's the one. What car stands out if you go back into history, like when you were just a scrub coming up, what car stands out that you always chased in your mind?